girl who does not like to get bored easily. I'm a girl who would like to be challenged. So as a result of that, a few years ago, I stepped aside from my comfort zone, and that made me to achieve something that I have had never ever dreamt before. So here's a little bit of my story. I was born and raised in Sri Lanka. When I was a kid, I wasn't quite aesthetic. I wasn't really into dancing, singing, or acting, but I was a very active kid. Mostly I would be busy with a puzzle or playing Lego or biking with my sister, and as a result of that, in the future, I was attracted like a magnet to science and maths. The passion I had for science later led me to study chemistry as my undergraduate studies. I just loved chemistry. My favorite part was to wear a lab coat, get into the lab, and pretend that I was a cool scientist. And when I came closer to the end of my undergraduate studies, just like any other student, I didn't know what to do. I could do two things. I could find a job or pursue higher studies. So I started to look into some PhD positions all over the world, and one of the PhD programs here in Surrey caught my eye. Two things intrigued me to apply. One, the research area, nanotechnology, which was one of my favorite areas back then. Number two, I get to travel around the world. But there was one problem. This particular PhD position came under the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering. For a girl who did chemistry, this was way too huge. However, my parents, siblings, friends encouraged me, supported me, and I thought, okay, I'm going to step aside from my comfort zone, challenged myself, and 3 years ago, I flew from Sri Lanka to UK and stumbled into engineering. Oh well, what was I thinking? After a few days of being here, I felt as if a giant wave is rolling towards me to sweep me out of here. My research had only a minute quantity of chemistry. It was loaded with physics, electronics, and material science. Weeks passed by, and I realized there were so many theories that I had to learn. And I literally had to learn the ABCs of physics. Every day was like a new day to me. But with time, you start to learn. You grow into it. You start to embrace this. I started to enjoy this. And as a result of that, I've had many milestones, and I got the opportunity to travel around the world, to present my work in several conferences, and also I got the opportunity to have a little bit of experience in a world-leading company over at Germany. So now I'm getting closer to the final year of my PhD, and over the past years, I've managed to develop a new generation of X-ray detectors which could possibly change the future of healthcare. Before explaining what these X-ray detectors are, let me tell you a story first. In 1895, don't worry, I'm not going to make it boring. In 1895, there was a physicist named Wilhelm Röntgen who was doing an experiment with a cathode tube, which was a glass container in which a beam of electrons lights up a fluorescent window. He was doing an experiment. He wrapped this tube with a cardboard to protect that fluorescent light escaping the tube. But something very peculiar happened. Another random screen, which was outside the tube, started to glow. In other words, invisible rays has passed through this tube to make that screen glow. But Röntgen had no idea what those rays were. So let's say that if we do a maths equation and if we come across any unknown term, we would call it as X, right? Just like that, Röntgen called these rays as X, as in X-rays, for not knowing what to call them. And his greatest discovery eventually made him to win a Nobel Prize. And even today, we still call them as X-rays as a tribute to this greatest physicist. So this is the very first medical image that Röntgen made, the world's first X-ray. He used his wife's hand to get this medical image. You can see her wedding ring there. So over the past 100 years, medical imaging has rapidly grown, and it is one of the greatest sources of getting medical data. This may not seem to be very impressive today, but at the time, this was a work of genius, because this was the time where people could look inside a human's body without having to slice the body open, right? So I'm pretty sure most of you who are sitting in the audience today have had exposed to X-rays of any kind. Remember, you're walking to a hospital to get an X-ray image of your fractured bone, or to get a dental X-ray image, or maybe to get done a mammography test. Or when you're traveling abroad, when you go past through the security, they ask you to stand like that to get a quick X-ray image of your body to see if you're carrying any suspicious objects. Or maybe you know a cancer patient who undergoes radiotherapy, who has to undergo high doses of X-rays. My point is, whether we like it or not, we are being exposed to X-rays to have certain benefits. So aren't you even a little bit curious to know how this X-ray imaging works? I hope you are. So let me tell you a little bit. So this is a basic schematic diagram of how to create an X-ray image. So you have an X-ray source which emits X-ray photons. For an instance, I would say, I would like to image my hand. So my hand consists of flesh and bones. In other terms, it consists of materials with two different densities. So when X-ray photons pass through this, more X-ray photons can pass through the flesh and less through the bone. And then we have an X-ray detector which could quantify the incoming X-ray photons, and this could electronically convert to an X-ray image. So there are many types of X-ray detectors in the world today with some exceptional good qualities. Some of the good qualities are that they have a good sensitivity towards X-rays, they have a good stability with a high longevity. However, they lack of certain qualities that would avoid them to be used in certain applications. For instance, these detectors suffer from disadvantages like they need high voltages to operate, and they are limited to smaller sizes, and they are flat and rigid. In radiotherapy, the current detectors used at hospitals are flat and rigid, but the human body, as we all know, isn't exactly flat. So basically, doctors right now, they use X-ray detectors to predict how much dose needs to be given to a particular tumor. Now assume that your tumor is on a curved surface, so now the doctor will have a hard time to accurately estimate how much dose has to be given to that tumor. Now imagine if there is a flexible detector, and now think of the wonderful shapes of the human body, like a breast, arm, or a limb. Now the doctor can accurately place this detector on the curved surface or wrap it around, and he would exactly know where and when to give the X-rays. Next, now think of someone who is in a remote area who does not have quick access to a hospital, like a soldier in a war zone. In case of a fracture, they'd have to wait hours or maybe even days to be assessed, all because the current detectors are bulky, expensive, and need loads of power to work. Now think of a detector which isn't restricted by any of this. A detector which is lightweight, cheap, a detector which could be operated using just batteries. Now think of the possibilities that this could open up. The concept of portable X-ray imaging system is no longer a dream. So my aim of the PhD was to find some answers for these current detectors suffer. So my aim was to develop X-ray detectors with a good performance, highly flexible, large area detectors, which can be powered using batteries, and all these with reduced production cost. So now Using the tools developed by nanotechnology, now I have developed the very first X-ray detector prototype. This is made out of an X-ray sensitive ink, which was made out of nanomaterials. Just like you print a piece of paper, this detector can be made by using the ink to be printed on any surface up to any size. Once the material is being printed, the electrical contacts have to be made and the detector has been mounted on a plaster. So this is a wearable X-ray detector to monitor the presence of X-rays. In simple terms, it's more like an X-ray reader. So the most important part of this is it could be powered using just wristwatch batteries. So this is just one detector, one pixel. Now I assume that most of you have phones which have an inbuilt camera that has a certain number of pixels, right? So in order to create an image, there has to be a pixel array. It works exactly same in the X-ray detector. My next goal was to create pixel array, in other words, an imager. So this consists of thousands of pixels, and using this imager, I've managed to image a screw, and with further optimization, this could be a flexible, portable image as well. Next, when you go to the dentist and next time, and when you need a dental X-ray, think of this. Why can't this detector that dentist is trying to put in be more flexible like Hashini's rather than being so bulky? Wouldn't you love that? So, with the development of new generation of X-ray detectors, I believe the future of healthcare has taken one step forward than yesterday. Keep aside this innovation. You could be an inventor too. You don't have to wear a lab coat and do experiments, but without knowing, every day you experiment new things. All you have to do is keep an open eye, make yourself open to step away from your comfort zone if needed, and always have the attitude of, I can do it. Thank you very much.